Don't start shit if you ain't ready to get hit.
Will allow me to drop some knowledge.
We have to disagree. I saw the Sailor Moon outfit.
All right, I invited you guys. What's up, everybody? Matter of
Anyway, sure.
you'll be in this too, Sophia. Send me a request.
Hello.
Hi. Mi amor, tú no me dijiste qué nombre tú quieres que yo, te llama.
I assume my nickname Ricky.
Okay. Just making sure. Let's get it Laura on here. Sophia, are you still there? I would love for you to join this. Hey, boo.
I pressed the wrong button at first.
That's okay. I like the pink. It's cute.
Thank you. I did it for my daughter. You know how my kids love pink. Hold on. My son is getting upset.
Esto lo para yo siempre en casa con mucho bulla.
I'm happy they turned off the music over here. They were blasting it. That's what woke me up.
You got those type of neighbors?
At first, I thought it was a street party, but there's like a mechanic store across the street. A mechanic place. It was like blasting music.
Hi, Jay.
Say hi, Jasmine.
Not feeling well still, right?
At least you don't have neighbors that stomps up and down because they're doing it right now. I have to turn my music on loud so my dog won't bark.
Yeah, it's always quiet over here normally in the building.
So what's going on, my BMF army? It's your favorite guy. What's up, girl?
Hey.
I really wanted you to be a part of this because I know that you went through it. If you're comfortable with, sharing a little bit.
I am actually. You want me to start first?
If he starts crying while somebody's talking, just put mute on your thing, okay?
I do that.
You see the icons? There's a little microphone. There's a little video.
I can see it now. I have to put my face close to see it.
The microphone, okay?
I'm gonna do it right now.
No, when he cries, if somebody's talking. All right. My BMF army, what's good? It's your favorite Jedi, the BMF goddess. Today, it's gonna be a little somber. We got a serious subject we're gonna talk about. And that is the topic of domestic violence. Unfortunately, I have been through it for a prolonged amount of time, so I'm very familiar with the ins and outs of it. And my guests today all have been through the same, as far as physical violence in a relationship. So, hi there. Dragon, appreciate you guys for joining us. It is a sensitive subject, so if you do have any questions or comments, please be respectful and just write them below. We're definitely converse with you. And if you want to share anything as well, I know it's not easy. This topic sucks, but I do this for awareness and because there are millions of people, not only Americans, all over the world who are going through this every day. And if we could be just a little voice that might help somebody or give somebody courage or make someone feel like they're not alone, that's all that matters to me. So, introduce, I just want you guys to introduce yourselves one by one. Ricky, you could go first.
All right. So my name is Ricky. I'm from Queens, New York. Grew up in New York City, and I feel like I'm in school. What else do I say?
Just a little bit about yourself.
I grew up in a domestic violent home, so that tends
Sorry.
to be what the kind of relationships I drew.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Just sucks. Laura?
Hi, I'm Laura. Used to be from the Bronx, New York. Been all over the place. I'm now in Jersey City. I've been through so many different situations in my life for almost 40 years of my life. So stop, Jay. I had 2 abusive relationships and 1 verbal one. And I was just playing what you were saying. I was playing to my daughter today that when she comes home, I'm gonna be explaining a story, and I'm doing it for people that's too scared to be out there to explain it to themselves. Because I've been through those group meetings and everything that people was scared to say anything for a long time because of their kids, and I know how that feels.
Like a support group?
Yeah. It helped because it got me out of my second abusive relationship, though.
Sophia?
Sorry.
Hey, I'm from the Bronx, currently living in Brooklyn. I grew up to nothing but domestic violence, so I only knew men beating women. I ended up getting into a relationship with someone when I was 17, and he told me he was 25, but he was really 30. That was my first domestic violence. Like, he beat me to a pulp. I almost died. I got into another one maybe 3 years later, and a verbal one after that.
All right, so we're gonna get into specifics. Who wants to go first? I just let me just before you guys start, let me just say a couple of things on the subject matter. I just want to thank you guys because I know this is not easy to share, especially being your first time doing it publicly. You are somewhat of heroes for doing that because it's a difficult thing. You could be helping other people. You will be helping other people. Sorry, just getting my notes. All right. So domestic violence. I mean, we've all heard. What's up, Hot Dog? Thanks for stopping by. We've all heard the gist of what domestic violence is, but I'm gonna go a little deeper. Domestic violence is a pattern of coercive, controlling behavior that can include physical abuse, emotional or psychological abuse, sexual abuse, or financial abuse, which is using money and financial tools to exert control. Some abusers are able to exert complete control over a victim's every action without ever using violence or only using subtle threats of violence. All types of abuse are devastating to victims. There's no, you never tell someone, oh, well, that's not that bad. Because honestly, I've been through every type of abuse. And although physical is really harmful, and I have like $100,000 in hospital bills at the time, when I went through emotional and mental abuse, it was way more difficult to come back from. Does that make sense? Because physical scars, they heal, they go away. Even though I still deal with physical issues because of how long I went through it, I'm it's easier for me to deal with those than what they did to me inside and having to overcome that. Some people never come back from that. So, domestic violence is a pervasive, life-threatening crime that affects millions of individuals across the United States, regardless of age, economic status, race, or sexual orientation, gender, identity, religion, ability, or education level. That means all genders, not just women. High-profile cases of domestic violence will attract headlines, but thousands of people experience domestic abuse every day. They come from all walks of life. In our annual domestic violence counts reports, abusive partners make it difficult for victims to escape relationships. Sadly, many survivors suffer from abuse for decades. It is important for survivors to know that the abuse is not their fault and that they are not alone. Help is available to those who are experiencing domestic violence. So we're gonna start with you, Ricky, and I want to say thank you so much because not enough men get to speak out about this. Let me just get this comment real quick. Hot Dog Star says, "I've been abused mentally and emotionally. Had me second guessing my instincts, my choices, my actions." Exactly. It totally has an effect on how you see yourself, and it'll tear you down to the point that, exactly, he said, I wasn't allowed to be myself. And that itself will change a person. And the power to get who you were back, sometimes you never get that person back. I distinctly remember the beginning before I got my first abusive relationship, because I was in a couple. The first one lasted 13 years. I was very young when I met this guy, and I was very naive. I didn't have my family support. They knew what I was going through. Nobody came to save me. I had to save myself. And I remember distinctly thinking, what happened to the girl that I was before all this happened? You kind of lose that person. It's really tough. So go ahead, Ricky.
Um, yeah, because it starts, for me, it started when I was a kid. So it's like you can never do anything because that fear is there of my mother was abusive and my stepfather all the time, even though if you did nothing wrong. So it's like you just spend most of your life just paralyzed. Like you can't do nothing, say nothing. You don't even want to breathe because you don't want to get hit. And then just growing up with that is like I could deal with the physical abuse because that's one thing, but everything else I can't handle, like emotionally. And
It's okay. Take your time. You started when you were very young. I went through the same thing. How old are you, Ricky? Go ahead, take a minute. It's okay.
I'll be 40 soon.
So we're around the same age, and our generation, our parents before, it was okay to beat your children. It was shortly after, during like the next generation, where they started cracking down on people when you weren't allowed to do that stuff. But I went through that too. Um,
And there were a bunch of times I went to school when they saw bruises, so they would send the ACS. But every time ACS came, they was like, "Shut up! If you say anything, we'll kill you." So it's like that fear was always there of don't say nothing at all, or else. And it just went crossed over to relationships because people saw how it was growing up, and then they'll use that to manipulate me and just have that control over me. And then it's like, from all that fear, any relationship I'm in, it's just It's not intentionally, but I just have you have to be in control, the female, and I would just hope one day, I find somebody that they're fine with being in control, but they won't use that to hurt me or control me. But
Right.
it sucks.
You're still dealing with it heavy. So you see, guys, the healing from that. Some people never heal from it. Um, I still have my own issues because of it. I'm definitely way more aggressive than I was prior to it. You definitely cannot even put your hand in my face now because I'll whip your ass. Like, it changes people in different ways, and it's something that you can never get rid of. But there are ways to cope. Have you ever tried any type of therapy or support group?
Yeah, I've been doing therapy for like over 10 years after my first suicide attempt when I was in the military. Because they always said they always found me somewhere crying or going through something alone. So then they offered to help, and then I started getting help, but sometimes it feels like it doesn't do anything. Some
Right.
days are just harder than others. And I know some people, like you said, you project it outwards so that nobody could ever do it against you. I put everything inwards. I've had 9 suicide attempts. I still feel like I don't belong here. But
You
I'm
remember
trying.
you remember what I told you, right? I'm always here 24/7. You can message me when you need me, when you need anybody. I don't care. You'll never be judged here. And I would never want you to do anything to yourself because you do mean something. You mean a lot to me. Always supported me. You're a great person and you deserve to be here. Hot Dog Stark says he's so sorry. Maurice, the Black Dragon, thank you for showing face. He also says that it's never okay. Any type of abuse. I agree. I'm gonna pause on you for a second. Um, Sophia.
Yeah. So, no, see, mine's my parents do that to each other. I think my first memory was walking to the living room and looking at the glass and seeing my father curse my mom out and then just knock her the fuck out. Legit knock her the fuck out. And that was a constant thing in my house where ACS would come, take us away, we'll go back in 3 months, and then another fight. I remember him telling us to throw guns out the window, drugs out the window. There was a lot of stuff going on when I was young. Um, but my first relationship, um, I used to work from 9 to 9, and just go straight to him, and it was a problem for me to work. Like, he would yell at me, scream at me. He would beat me up. I had to quit that job and stay at home. Not even a home because it was a room for rent. We were renting a room, and he would leave me $5 for me to eat. I couldn't have my own job, but for him, $5 was enough for me to eat that day until he got home. He'll leave me a little bit of weed. It was just conditioning me to know that that's all I needed for the rest of the fucking day. Um, I remember him using drugs, a lot of it. We used to mix sleeping pills with liquor so that I could get this super high, so he could do whatever he wanted to me. It became, a pattern. There was one time where I denied wanting to use coke and stuff. I denied all of that, and he beat me up to a point where I ended up in the hospital, and I lost my kid at the same time. Um, it doesn't make me cry anymore. It just makes me more angry because, I felt like I could have done a lot more different back then, like standing up for myself. And I feel like I allowed him to do that to me because I know I was stronger than that. I
I
knew it.
have a lot of the same problem. I get very, very angry. I have a spinal problem. I have a lot of physical issues because I used to get kicked in the back a lot. I used to get beat up like I was a nigga in the street, and
Mhm.
to this is when I met him when I was 19. This was through my early 20s, and I'm 38 now, and I'm still going through shit, and I have nightmares every night still to this day because of what I went through, and I get very angry because I'm like, these motherfuckers can live their life without no fucking problem, and I got to deal with this shit for the rest of my life.
Yep.
And it makes me a very angry person, and it's something that's really hard to deal with because people around you don't understand, and you can't expect them to understand because it's not their problem, but people don't think, oh well, what's wrong with her? There's something deeper going on. So you always got to be self-aware. Am I being too much? But then it's hard to control. It really sucks. I definitely understand that. Hi,
Yeah.
Kiara. Thanks for stopping by. Um, we are all domestic violence survivors, and everybody's just talking about some things that they went through in hopes that it'll help somebody else's situation, and also kind of a therapeutic thing. Hi, Sophia.
Yeah. I think it took me being pregnant with my daughter for me to have my feet on the ground so I can start running. Um.
How did you
I,
get out of that one?
um. Once I found out I was pregnant, I think that woke something up inside of me, because for me, I don't know. I felt like I was gonna have a girl from the jump, and then a few months go by. He didn't touch me. He didn't hit me. He didn't force any drugs down my nose. So when I found out, I went to an ultrasound and found out I was having a girl. That set something in me that this is not what I want for my daughter. I don't want her to grow up and think this is okay. So the moment that he raised his hand, I had my bags packed in the closet. I took them shits and ran. He was still chasing me down the block until he saw me stop at a cop and point at him like he's trying to attack me right now. I went to the shelter and I got my shit together. But then I ended up meeting another person who was verbally abusive, and he's manipulative. And I had to take a step back to figure out and analyze what am I doing in this position right now. I'm going from physical to emotional. So with that, I just picked up my shit and left again. I don't think I ever want to be in that situation. You see the red flags from the jump, from the words that they use, how they use it, their tone, the way they walk, the way everything. You could tell
Let
with
me
just one
say something,
conversation.
and I'm sure that all of us will agree to this. And this is for anybody, whoever goes through this in the future. I hope not, but once they hit you once,
I'll do it again.
once they verbally abuse you once, it'll keep reoccurring. There's no it only happened one time, and I'll tell you that from years and years of fucking experience. Get out. That is your only red flag that you need. The first time should be the last time. Um,
Yeah.
Whoever's trying to join, I already have 3 guests, so it won't let you join. But Kiara did go through this as well. She was also young, and he was older. She was 18, he was 28. Pieces of crap. The older they are, they try to definitely manipulate you easier. When I'm gonna go to Laura. Laura, go ahead. You start your story.
You already know the first person because we was there for basically both of mine. Um, the first one was kind of crazy because at first for the whole year we didn't go through that until like basically when my daughter's almost a year old. It's like you think the person is good, and then next minute out of the blue they just turn into that person, and it's like me. I can't have emotions right now with everything that went on with me. It's like hard to explain and easy to explain, but then it's like don't know how to get the words out right now. It's just crazy because I had 3 kids with that person, and I should have just stopped right there with the first kid. And my first child was a daughter too, and I wish if I knew about it when I was before I even got pregnant, that would happen to me 2-3 years later into knowing the person. I know the people are changed now, but sometimes they can go back into that same roots and doing it. The second one was the worst. You was there at the end of all that with me. Like within a few months into the pregnancy, that's when he changed. He tried to he was a one that was verbally and abusive. He brought his family in, my family in, that didn't need to be in, but my mom, I love her to death, but she finally listens and believes things that comes out of my mouth now. But back then, she didn't believe half of the things I went through. Like when I was 8 years old, what happened to me, I went through all kind of abuse, physically, mentally, and everything. Went through therapy, trying to get back into therapy to be able to talk about this, because I stopped talking about this for a while, to be honest. I think 8 years now I stopped talking about this. It's been a long time I talk about this. So it's like talking about different things that happened to me in my life. I lost my kids because of this, of not listening to family members, very stubborn, because being through that abusive made me basically so stubborn to the point that I lost 5 of my kids. One of them I can't see at all. During COVID, they got took it from me. She barely lets me see him, talk to him. He suffered. It's like hard to explain situations because it's like so much went on in my life. I found out 12 to 14 years ago I had the bipolar. 8 years ago, after having the little one that you saw on the camera, Gemma, I suffered with depression, so my moods is always all over the place. My mind's all over the place. Try not to have a conversation in front of her, but she's gonna. I try to warn I have 4 daughters. I try to let them know in the future if something happened like this to them, I want to be open to tell them that. And it's crazy. It was around 2022 it happened to me. Why are you over here? Sorry.
Okay.
My daughter wants to eat over here now. And one is fighting his nap.
Hello? Oh.
Welcome.
I look atrocious, you guys. That's why I'm hiding. I just woke up. But you know what? I'll give y'all a show.
Hey, girl!
Hey, everyone.
Laura, just mute your mic real quick so she can tell the story.
All right.
So, I was 18 years old when I met this guy. I was in a relationship with another dude who just wasn't paying attention to me, was neglecting me. So I was already in a bad relationship. And eventually, this guy showed me attention. I was young, dumb, and naive. I thought he cared about me. He got me out of my relationship. And maybe not even a couple months later, I ended up pregnant with his child. And while I was pregnant, we were out on the street. There was one memory I had. I was throwing up from morning sickness, and he was a whole block ahead of me, just didn't care, nothing. And when anyone who knows me knows, if I throw up, you can hear me. It was a lot, on and off for 3 years. It was ridiculous. My final straw was we were taking care of his cousin's daughter. She's 3 years old. She's being a kid, and she had this ball. She freaking put the ball on the sofa and she fell off. I had to go to work, but I stayed, and she was like, "Can you lay with me?" So I laid down with her, and he's yelling. He's like, "Oh, why are you laying down with her? She's just a kid. She'll be okay." Da 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 da. And I'm like, she asked me to lay with her. I'm trying to comfort her from falling. She's not injured, but she's a little girl. And it just went off from there. Freaking had me in a corner, threatened to throw out my stuff and things like that. It got to the point where my dad called. He used to have control of my phone. So he answered to my dad. I started screaming for my father. I don't know how, but my dad ended up finding me. He dragged me out of that house. He got an order of protection against this man because I'm only 18. So we all know an 18-year-old girl, she's not going to be able to leave the person she loves alone. And that was one of the comments I made. At the end of the day, I don't think anybody who's been in this situation has to feels bad, but we carry a guilt for some reason, from these incidents that happened in our past. We carry a guilt because we're just now we're like, damn, we should have been smarter about it. We should have been, we should have seen it better. We should have been stronger. And at the end of the day, we have to look at the ages that we went through these things. Like, Yazzie, you said that you went through it in your early 20s. I don't recall the other ages where, you guys have gone through it, but I'm pretty sure it's those ages where we were young and dumb, which is usually the target audience for abuse, So it's very life changing. It's mentally, it changes your mental. Like, everybody knows I'm a very social person, but after that I started shutting down. I started distrusting people. I kind of lost my innocence in my childhood. And then the worst part is, people still update me about this person because we had a small social circle, and I still find out that he's doing the same thing. He had another kid, did it to his baby moms, dated someone else afterwards, did it to them. So it's just the fact that they never changed their pattern. Nobody's ever done anything to help change their patterns. And people are still going through it, People are still going through it with those people who did it to you. So it's a terrible thing, and we need to find a way to change it. And these stories, you never know who it could reach out to. You never know how it can make someone else strong enough to maybe leave their relationship. It's up to us as, people who have gone through it to share and to be strong for the people who can't be strong right now.
Right. And it's not easy to leave this type of thing. It's not just, hey, I'm going to walk out today, because those abusers, they often don't take that lightly. And what goes on behind closed doors stays behind closed doors. And I'll tell you, because the 13 years that I dealt with said individual, out of all those years that people in the whole building heard me screaming for my life, only one time did they call the cops.
Mm-hmm.
People mind.
Yeah, that's another thing. So people who end up witnessing it don't speak up either. They'll hear it, they'll see it. I remember there was one time I got hit so hard in the back of the head, I went flying in public, and a couple just walked past me. Nothing, just looked and just kept going. And that's not the right thing to do. I know a lot of men who, the second they see another man yelling at a woman, start getting in the business, because at the end of the day, they have little sisters, they have mothers, they have, family members who've probably gone through it too, so it hits home. But even that, niggas on the street, at the end of the day, they don't play that. You don't hit a woman, the same way that I don't play it. And it goes vice versa, because I've also known men who have been in abusive relationships. We all have seen these scrawny ass guys with these big women, and we're just like, why are you with this bitch? Because a lot of them end up turning into bitches, and we're just feeling bad for our friends.
Big women. I've seen all types of women be abusive.
Bigger than them, whether it's muscular, whether it's literally big, just
I've seen
stronger than them.
Women abuse men because the man won't get her back. It really, but.
And
definitely,
that's another thing. A lot of those women have gone through some sort of abuse, so they feel like it's okay to pick on the men that are weaker than them, because they're just worried in their head, it's a man, he may hurt me. It's a vicious cycle. I've caught myself doing it too, where I've hurt men in the past because I've been hurt by men, and that's not fair to the men who have tried to care.
When you make up, because when I got out of that first abuse, I was more aggressive. My next boyfriend, I remember we got into our first argument. He was an amazing guy, and my first reaction was to push him. And in that moment, I was like, what are you doing? You've never been like this. And it's just something, the aggression that you take with you from going
That's so true.
And I think
thing that you
I
gotta.
think a lot of us have a lack of closure because we have to leave those situations so fast. You know, you never get that closure like you get in other relationships. You know, why did this end? Why did this happen? Why did you do this? We don't really ask questions because we feel like those questions are going to make us stay longer. So we have like a hole in us that we just have to accept will never be filled with answers. You know, we have to find another way to fill it, and that hole that's filled has to be filled with a self-love, because without self-love we won't have that backbone to leave the next toxic relationship.
After that, after I, went- after I went through it all those years, that whole time, anytime I went to the hospital, the cops, they would tell me, "Don't you feel like he should, get punished for what he does to you?" And I played it off, and I never got him in trouble until the very end when he beat the shit out of me so bad, and he bit me till I bled all over my body. That I went straight to the police and said, "I can't take this anymore." There were so many times where uh, he almost took my life as well. Just get to. I just want people to know the victims sometimes return or stay with the abusers. The question is not why doesn't the victim just leave? The better question is why does the abuser choose to abuse? The deck is stacked against victims as they navigate safety. Abuse partners work very hard to keep victims trapped in the relationship. They may try to isolate the victim from friends and family, thereby reducing the people and places where the survivor can go for support. I went through this. He never wanted me to chill with friends. I didn't see my family. Um, Various tactics of financial abuse. Abusive partners create financial barriers to safety. There is a real fear of death or more abuse if they leave, as abusers may perceive this act of independence as a threat to the power and control that they have worked to gain, and they may have chose to escalate the violence in response. On average, 3 women die at the hands of a criminal former intimate partner every day. Through gaslighting, abusive partners cause victims to feel like they are responsible for the abuse. Gaslighting is a form of emotional abuse that abusers use to confuse and shift blame onto the victim. This often causes the victim to doubt their sanity and feel like they are responsible for the abuse and therefore able to stop it. Um, Abuse takes an emotional and physical toll over time, which can translate to additional health issues that make it leaving more difficult. Survivors often report that they want the abuse to end, not the relationship. A survivor may stay with or return to an abusive partner because they believe that the abuser's promises to change are real, and they aren't. So that's a big thing right there for the people who are not going through it and choose to judge the people in it. Don't ever say, "Oh, well, she won't leave him. He won't leave her." Because it's not that fucking simple. And I used to hate that shit. Because I got judged a lot. You don't know what
And
it is till you're in it, period.
and
Mm-hmm.
speaking from what I've been through, the having to deal with it from a childhood, sometimes you just think you stay with the person because you think nobody loves you or wants you, and you have nobody else, so you just stay with them. And I've stood in relationships that were abusive just because I wanted somebody to love me, even if it was a fake love. To stay with them, and it's wrong, but it's like you feel like you have nobody. At least somebody abusive is somebody,
Yeah.
and it's hard to get out of that mentality.
I'd like you to
Yeah.
share yours because we don't hear from men a lot. Um, Either one you want to share.
And like even the last situation where I was in the military and I just came back from overseas and she was very abusive. Um, she bit me in my back when I was trying to leave. She was punching me and everything. And I went outside and I couldn't help but just cry in uniform. and a female cop went by, and she said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Nothing." I said, "You sure?" I said, "Yeah." Then she came back, and she asked again, and I just started crying. And then she just asked. She said, "Is she upstairs?" Like she knew. And I said, "Yeah." So when they said, "Do we have your permission to go upstairs?" And I said, "Yeah." But when they went upstairs, I don't know what happened, but they said that they have to arrest me because she's alleging that I abuse her. And they put me in
Wow.
handcuffs and full uniform and everything. And I was like, how am I the abuser? And I have bite marks down my back. It's not like I can take my mouth off and bite myself. And the whole time they're doing that, like, she was packing, and they arrested me and took me in. But then when they saw the cameras, because it was in a shelter, they saw that it was her. They released me, and then they went to prosecute her. But the whole time I was arrested, she had left New York City, and they've never found her to this day. But they're so quick to find a guy, I bet you. But when it
It
comes to a
is true.
female, like, I just get told, we don't know where she's at. We can't find her, so we have to let the case go.
Let me tell you. First of all, after I went through that, and I told you that the last thing that happened to me was I got beat the shit out of me, and he bit me all over my body. I had to help the cops get him because they won't. They won't do the most for you. I had to
No, they
tell them
won't.
every day. I had to try to find out where the fuck he was so that they could go get him because they were not even doing the job. And as far as the how it used to be when that happens to you, and they would just take the guy in because she said so. Now it's changed because just a couple of years ago, one of my friends, her man came in drunk and he puffed, so I punched him in his face and he got a gash. I opened him wide up, and when the cops came, they were gonna arrest me because I didn't have no marks. Now, whatever's fucked up, that other person is, so it's changed now because we've come so far from the women who actually have the audacity, and I don't even like to talk about them because how fucking dare you lie and say that a man hit you, that now they go by whoever's fucked up, you're going in. If you're both fucked up, you're both going in. So that I think is a little bit more fair than what it used to be.
Yeah, true.
It was like that, and it's terrible. I'm glad they changed
Yeah.
that. But
I think that's horrible
through it
because
type of women. It's disgusting. For the women out there,
yeah, I think that,
any of you who watch this, you're fucking disgusting. How dare you lie about some shit like that? There's too many men and women, whoever the fuck you are, there's too many people going through this for real, and it's not a fucking joke for you guys to be making up stories because you want somebody to get locked. This is me off.
It's always best to tell the truth, not lie. Because when it really happens
then
to you,
if it ever
then they're not
happens
going to help you.
one thing women don't realize is the fact of, like, the law is changing to also favor men, because one thing that nobody really opened their eyes to is there are men who have been through a lot of abusive relationships, whether it is mental abuse, physical abuse, or emotional abuse, or even financial abuse, because I didn't know about that one until Yazzie mentioned it. That is another way that women tend to abuse men also. We abuse them financially. I've dated men who have told me horrible stories about women. Huh?
I'm sorry. It's just like Sophia was saying that her man didn't want her to work, that type of shit. So that they can have that control over you, like, oh, you need me
Yeah,
for
my
this.
twin father did that to me.
So, it's really horrible because then also a lot of men didn't speak up out of fear for that happening. If you accuse a woman of being abused, all she has to do is say he hit me.
Yeah.
A man has to show proof, but all a woman has to do is say he hit me and you're in cuffs.
And you know what sucks? Speaking from a soldier's point of view in the military, is when somebody accuses you, they say, give me money or whatever they want from you. or they're gonna lie and say you abused them or raped them. You either have a choice of just submitting to them and just give them the money or whatever they want, or have a slim chance of them reporting it, the lie to the military, and the military doesn't play. Whether you're even if you're innocent, you'll get kicked out, dishonorably discharged off of accusations, even if you're proven to be innocent, and then you just fucked up your career by not just doing what they said.
I was gonna ask you that. Did you have to go through any repercussions because of that?
Um, Military wise, they never said anything because I was told you either have to deal with it, suck it up, and just submit to these people and just do your career, or take a chance and bring it into the light, but you might get dishonorably discharged. So I submitted and just finished my 8-year career and just did whatever they said so I can have all the benefits I have now.
So I want to know potential. I think I've gone through all these red flags. There is no way to spot an abuser in a crowd. Most abusers share some common characteristics. Some of these signs include they insist on moving in the relationship rather quickly. They can be very charming and seem too good to be true. Often are too good to be true. Insist that you stop participating in your preferred leisure activities or spending time with family and friends. Now, first met you, I was in wrestling. I was a big fan of wrestling. I wanted to be a wrestler at that time, and I left because he did not want me. You remember? He did not want me to be in any leisure activity that included meals. They are extremely jealous or controlling. That's number one. They do not take responsibility for their actions. They blame others for whatever goes wrong. They criticize their partner's appearance and make frequent put-downs. Their words and actions do not match. It's important to remember that domestic violence is first and foremost a pattern of power and control. Any of these behaviors may indicate of abuse on its own until it's considered a part of a pattern of behavior. Is it possible for abusers to change? Yes, but they must first make the choice to change their behavior. It's not an easy for an abusive person to stop choosing abusive behavior. It requires a serious commitment to change. Once an abuser has had all the power in a relationship, it's difficult to transition into a healthy relationship where each partner has equal respect and power. Sometimes an abusive partner stops one form of abuse, for example, physical, but continues to employ sexual, emotional, or financial abuse. It's important to remember that domestic violence includes all these forms of abuse and is part of an overall pattern of seeking power, control, now, the person that I went through that through 13 years actually did go to an extensive amount of counseling and all that. I could say to this day, I'm still, we're like friends on social media. We're okay. I could say that he actually did change. It took him a long fucking time, but he actually made that commitment to change. He's in another relationship now, and he's not doing that anymore. So I commend him on that, because that just shows you that there is potential to change.
That's tough. Why couldn't they change for us? But they changed for somebody
You
else.
just read my heart. I was gonna say that.
You guys, honestly, I don't care if mine changed or not, because at the end of the day, at that point in time, they were no good for me, right? For me. How am I to say that even if they change, right? How do I know I wasn't, like, how I am doesn't trigger them to do that again? How are we so sure that we are not their triggers to abuse again? So never think to yourself, why couldn't they change for me? No, at the end of the day, be glad that they didn't stick around, because if they had stayed around you, either you would be in the ground right now, or you would still be unhappy, because that never allowed them to change. They would have never changed if they had stayed.
That's true.
It takes us kicking them out for them to even have any ideas to change.
My twin father still tries to this day to try to contact me just to see his kids.
How old are your kids again, hon?
They're, I think, going to be 14 now.
They're going to be 14?
Yeah.
How long has it, like, has he actually been a part of their life?
He stopped being a part of their life ever since they was 3 years old. Because I put out all the protection on him. He's feeling guilty now.
That's the one. Okay, she was.
The one
they was having a fight one time, and I was there.
Yeah, she was staying in my. She was staying in my house, and she finally witnessed it in her own eyes that this little short midget is beating me up.
I smacked the shit out of him. That nigga was
and
crying.
The crazy part is, I know how to fight. I know how to defend myself. But for some reason, in that, I felt like
the person that you with, you don't want to hurt them.
And on top of that, it's because of my situation with my kids. He always, when nobody was around, oh, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to tell about, I still lost my kids. Even with him out the picture, I still lost my kids. Because he was making it longer. We was this close to get all my first 5 kids. No, 6 kids. 5 kids I lost my rights to. 1 I don't see no more. So that's 6 of my kids that's not in my care. Because of him, of having my kids longer and longer and longer, I look like the person that slept around, had a bunch of kids just to have kids. Then on top of that, all he did for me is basically lose them because of how long I've been in the system. Instead of how I felt is I gained all this weight from pregnancies and stress and all that, and then I suffered with depression. It's like he basically made my mentalness the worst, that I don't know who I should trust and all that, comfortable who to talk to. That's why I only have 2 friends, that this one on, and my other one that they both in New York. With him, I couldn't even see Yaz. I couldn't even see Mita. I couldn't see my family. Only when I had my visits to go see my kids, that's the only time I could like sneak out and go see my friends. And I felt like that was the worstest relationship I had been in. And that's why my family be like, oh, make sure you don't be. It's like, it's not easy to try to find a good person. It took me, how long? I've been with my husband now for 6 years, going to be 7. It took me a long time to find him. And I told him, I wish I met you a long time ago. I probably wouldn't have had, I love all my 8 kids. I love them to death. But I feel like if I met him, I probably wouldn't have had my twins. I would still probably have my youngest 2. But I feel like saying like that, I don't want my kids thinking that I don't love them. I just felt like they would have had a better father in their life, and they could see them. He was just saying that I probably would have had 4 kids with him. So probably my first 2 plus that, I probably had 6 kids instead of 8.
Yeah. It's hard to break those abusive patterns after. Yeah. I know that my ex-fiance before I'm with this guy I am now was drunk. He was a violent drunk. When I met him, I was very vulnerable because I was reeling from something else, and he was the charming, so good to be true, and I fell right into that trap, and I suffered a lot during those. Laura was there one time when he was drunk and violent, and it was just way too long. And at the end of that relationship, I was just so tired.
I still want to beat him up.
So tired. He still stalks me to this day. I was just so tired of everything that I had built up from abuse and pain, that towards the end of that relationship, I did try to kill myself. And I woke up in the hospital, and the doctor told me you shouldn't be here. And this was a week before Chester Bennington killed himself from Lincoln Park. So all of that I took to heart, and I said, I got to get the fuck out of this and away from me, because this is how bad it wasn't for him, because I would never try to hurt myself for somebody, but I know what it feels like to have so much pain, everything that Chester Bennington was going through, that you don't want to live with it anymore. You don't know how to deal with it. But that's not the answer. You hear me, Ricky? Not the answer. You deserve to be here. You deserve to be happy, and you deserve to love yourself, because you're a beautiful person. I just want to thank you guys for sharing today. Again, I keep repeating myself, it's not easy, and you guys are brave, and I really appreciate you guys for being here.
Round of applause, round of applause.
And remember, I'm always here. Hit me up. Anybody out there, if you need somebody to talk to or you need some resources.
Me and Yasmin, we're the best listeners. You can ask her.
Laura has been my best friend since we're 16 years old.
You 16, I was 18.
No.
Even though I turned 18 when I met you. I was 17 going on 18 when I met her.
BMF
I can't believe we've been friends that long. She's the longest friend and the only long friend.
Subscribe to BMF Goddess on YouTube. Thank you, Kiara. Follow my friends. I'll add the info to the video. May the force be with y'all. Good night.
Good night, everyone.